Welcome to the Derek Deputy video game show. I am Derek Deputy. We have a big week coming up this week. Last week, I have to admit, not super busy when it comes to the news of video games. But this week is looking like it is going to be a big week. And we're going to talk a lot about what's coming up here. It is nearly what would usually be E3 season. There is no E3 this year. Instead, there's Summer Game Fest and other showcases. And the first major one is coming up this Wednesday with Sony. So we're going to talk about the PlayStation Showcase. We're going to talk about Blizzard canceling Overwatch 2 single player. We're going to talk about Mortal Kombat news. We're going to talk about a potential Star Wars game from Ubisoft. And so much more. So, hold on tight. We're going to get right into things here. But first, if you are listening on YouTube, please subscribe. Please like the video. Please comment about anything you want to comment about. If you are listening on one of the many other podcasting platforms that you can listen to this show on, please follow or subscribe or whatever your podcasting platform calls it. Or just check back next week if you don't have an option of doing that. Who knows? I try to release this podcast weekly. If you want to catch future episodes, you have to keep checking back. Click the notification button on YouTube because we are listening on YouTube, able to be listened to on YouTube as well. And let's really get into things here. I don't want to spend too much time on this first subject, but let's get straight into the PlayStation Showcase here. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it because it's like everyone's talking about it. You can listen to like any video game podcast, any YouTuber, read any article you want about this. I don't usually like talking about the things everyone else is talking about, at least not too much. But I'm also a PlayStation owner, so I'm very excited about this. The first few years of the PlayStation 5 have been a little bit slow as far as PlayStation exclusives, or PlayStation 5 exclusives go. Even Sony has been releasing a lot of their stuff on PS4 still, which I personally don't mind. It took a while to get enough PS5s out there. I think everyone should be able to enjoy games as long as the games perform better on PlayStation 5. I don't personally mind much if they're also released on PS4. But a lot of people aren't too happy about that. And personally, I would like to see what games that are just on PS5, what that looks like. And so that is really why I think a lot of people are excited for this showcase. There's also plenty of rumors. And for one, Jeff Grubb is reporting that Ghost of Tsushima 2 and the new Dragon Age game definitely will not be there. So it sounds like they're probably early in development, too early to be there. Maybe they're just getting started. Who knows? They won't be there. And he sounded pretty definite about that because he said it in a podcast or something, and I listened to it, and he sounded pretty definite. Another big rumor is about Persona stuff. Nate the Hate released a podcast. Nate Drake. He said that Persona 6 is in development, coming out next year, I think he said. He might have said 2025. I think he said 2024, end of 2024. I don't remember. But he said it's in development, and wasn't sure if it would be at this showcase or not. If it is coming out at the end of next year, though, everyone keeps saying this showcase, all the leakers at least, the one thing they all keep saying is that this showcase is not just to show off this year, but games for the next few years. So, if it is in development and it's coming out at the end of 2024, it could be here. We don't know that for a fact, though. he also specifically mentioned that there's two other Persona games in development. One being a side game. It kind of sounded like a side game most people probably wouldn't care about. Probably like a mobile game or something coming out next year. But and then a Persona 3 remake is apparently coming out this year. But he specifically mentioned that it will be at the Xbox showcase, not the Sony one. Something else, Spider-Man is likely to be here. So I'm very excited for the Spider-Man 2. The first game is one of my absolute favorite games of all time. I am hyped. And on Twitter, Insomniac confirmed there will be no co-op. So there are multiple playable characters, obviously. Spider-Man and Miles Morales, or at least that's what we all assume. I suppose it's possible you won't be able to play as one or the other. I kind of doubt it. I think they'll both be playable. So we were all assuming, a lot of people were assuming at least, there might be co-op, but multiplayer co-op, where you could play through the game. One player is Spider-Man, as Peter Parker. The other player is Miles Morales, and that won't be the case. The Snitch, who is one of the few leakers with like nearly 100% accuracy. Like a lot of people think he might have an in at like YouTube or something, and he sees these gets his leaks from videos being uploaded. That's not been confirmed or denied, but it would make sense. He was giving hints that people think are hinting at Final Fantasy Tactics. And so that could be something at the PlayStation showcase. Another thing, a lot of people are talking about Metal Gear, Konami, Castlevania, and stuff like that. Silent Hill, we know there's Silent Hill games coming out. We don't know for a fact that they'll be at the PlayStation showcase, but it seems likely. But Metal Gear is the big one people are talking about. According to Tom Henderson at Insider Gaming, the Metal Gear 3 remake will not be PlayStation exclusive. Now keep in mind, this is all rumors. Everything I've discussed so far is all rumors. We don't know any of this for a fact. This is all rumors. But Tom Henderson is reporting Metal Gear stuff won't be exclusive to PlayStation. So it will release on the Xbox as well. I'm hoping they re-release. So we all know they're only like remaking 3. But I'm hoping they re-release as many of the Metal Gear games on modern platforms as possible. Because I kind of missed most of the Metal Gear stuff. I've played 5, which is the one most people say is like the worst one. And so I'd like to play the others because I really enjoyed 5. So hopefully we will get those on modern platforms. If not, I'll probably try the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake at least. Nate the Hate, in that same podcast, claimed that it will be at the showcase. Or kind of hinted at it. So hopefully we'll find out more. The other thing that I would speculate on, at least I personally think we might see games that will be in other showcases. For example, Ubisoft has their own showcase later in the month. So it's possible we'll see, let's say the next Assassin's Creed game. We'll see a quick 1 to 2 minute quick trailer at the PlayStation showcase. And they'll say, hey, you can see more of this at the Ubisoft showcase later this month. That tends to happen a lot in these showcases. So I do think we'll probably see something along those lines. Lance McDonald on Twitter, another insider, kind of an insider, is speculating that Bloodborne for PC could be at the PlayStation showcase. Bloodborne is a PlayStation IP. It is a game that a lot of people want on PC. or even PS5. Essentially, people want to play it at 60 frames per second, which is pretty understandable for that type of game. I'm not. I don't think 30 frames per second is something that ruins the game or anything. But I do understand why people prefer 60 frames per second. I prefer 60 frames per second myself when it's available. So I do get why people want that. And so hopefully that's real. And then the other thing everyone's talking about for the showcase, and no one's outright like leaking this per se, but it's one of the most discussed games for the showcase is The Last of Us Factions. We know it exists. It's a multiplayer Last of Us game. We know it exists. We know it's in development. They've confirmed it's in development. They also said we would hear more about it this year. This would be the perfect time to tell us more about it. And it would help fill up their end of the year. Because as of right now, none of the companies really have much. Like, as far as the rest of this year goes, we know Xbox has Starfield, Sony has Spider-Man, Nintendo has Pikmin. And that's like almost all we know from the first parties. So, Sony putting out another game at the end of the year would make sense. Kind of like a November release. And I think Last of Us Factions would make sense for that. So that's a lot of information, a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors. I'm sure some of them will come true. Some of them probably won't. But I'm just excited for the showcase. I want to see Spider-Man 2 so bad. I am so excited for that game. And hopefully we'll get a good extended look at it. So next I want to talk about Grand Theft Auto 6. I'm getting this information from GameRant.com, although you can probably find this information on any gaming website. It was a pretty common story. Grand Theft Auto 6 is probably one of the most anticipated games practically ever, to be honest. And we might have an idea on the release date. Last week, there was a financial report, and according to Rockstar's recent financial report, it focuses on the 2025 year. Take-Two is expecting a huge amount of revenue during the 2025 year. They're not expecting as much for 2024. They're expecting a ton for 2025. And specifically, the report estimates $8 billion in net bookings during the financial year 2025, thanks to the launch of quote-unquote several groundbreaking titles, unquote. These titles are described within the report as being expected to, quote, set new standards, unquote, within the industry. What game fits that description better than Grand Theft Auto 6? All the Grand Theft Auto games have really shown what you can do with the technology of their time period. These games, say what you will about them, I know they're not for everyone, but they definitely advance video games as we know them every single time they release. And so that's kind of why I'm excited for Grand Theft Auto 6. My relationship with the Grand Theft Auto series is a bit different than most people. I've played them, I've enjoyed them, but like, we didn't own a PlayStation growing up or an Xbox. We only owned a GameCube. And Grand Theft Auto wasn't really on Nintendo stuff. Wasn't on the Wii, wasn't on the Wii U, so on and so on. I played it at friends' houses and whatever, but realistically, it's not a series I'm super into. I played San Andreas on PC a few years back, and I got maybe 15, 20 hours into it before I just kind of got bored with the story. And that really sums up Grand Theft Auto for me. I tried the same with Grand Theft Auto 5. Tried to play that story, and got maybe a little bit farther, maybe 30 hours or so. But these stories are so long, and they just can't hold my attention. But I might give Grand Theft Auto 6 another try. From what I've seen of it, it looks really like there were leaks last year. I think it was like September or so, and the leaks made it sound pretty cool. So I will probably try again, even if I don't beat it. Grand Theft Auto is a game that I've always enjoyed every time I've played it, and it's one where I don't feel bad about not beating it. So who knows? Maybe I doubt I'll pick it up at release. Grand Theft Auto games usually go down in price eventually, so I might wait till it's on a discount or whatever. But I'll probably give Grand Theft Auto 6 a try when it releases. Sounds like that will be in 2025. So next, I want to talk about one of my favorite gaming companies. I love Nintendo. One of my, like as I said, one of my favorite gaming companies. They release very good games, but sometimes they do things that irritate me. And this week, they announced that Super Mario Advance, Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2, Yoshi's Island Super Mario Advance 3 are all coming to NSO. Now, I love Mario, but this was dumb. Because all of those games are already on NSO, technically. So these are re-releases on the Game Boy Advance of the original Mario games. We already have one of them, I think 4, or Mario Advance 4 that is already on NSO, I think. Maybe, I don't remember. And then all of the Mario games, all the 2D Mario games, are on the NES and the SNES NSO service already. So they're adding games to the Game Boy Advance that they essentially already have available. Now, these are slightly different versions of these games, but for most people agree that these are the worst versions of these games. And so it's just kind of irritating when there's other games they could get on NSO, other games they've announced will be coming to NSO that were better, that I'm looking forward to more, and we got these instead. Now, I think their logic here is might as well just get these out of the way while most people are playing Zelda. And I guess that logic is fine. It's whatever, but I don't know. They could have done better. At one point they announced the Pokemon TCG is going to be coming to NSO, and it's still not on NSO. And I would have preferred to get that this month instead of these. This tick up this month's Game Boy release probably. So that's a little bit annoying, a little bit irritating. Nintendo knows there are better games for Game Boy Advance. There are better games for Game Boy. There are better games that they could be releasing on all of their NSO consoles right now. So it was just kind of irritating to see this. I really just want to play the Pokemon TCG on Switch. Like, that old Game Boy game was very fun. And I would have rather seen that this month. Especially going into the summer, when I personally am going to have some time off. A lot of people are probably going to have time off. But it is what it is. We're going to take a quick break. But we will be right back. So I am not an Overwatch person really at all. I haven't played it really at all. Just not my thing. But when they announced the Overwatch 2 would have this big single player hero mode, a campaign, that intrigued me. That sounded like something that could get me into Overwatch. So when this year they announced that they are scrapping that, which was the entire point. They were upgrading from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 in the first place. That was a little bit disappointing. So I'm reading off of GameSpot.com. There is an interview done by a Tamor Hussein, game director Aaron Keller, and executive producer Jared Noose discuss why the eagerly anticipated mode will no longer be released in the future of Overwatch 2. And it's just, the entire article is just them explaining, hey, it's not happening. They are not going to do the big campaign. So one, if they didn't know this was going to happen, why announce it in the first place? Oh, if this wasn't going to happen, I guess they didn't know. But what I'm getting at is why did they announce this so early if there was a chance it wasn't going to happen? There's what I'm trying to say. This was announced, I want to say, before the pandemic even. Like 2019. And I might be wrong. But yeah, this was announced. And it was like the entire reason they were putting out Overwatch 2. They were going to turn off Overwatch 1. Overwatch 1 was just going to turn into Overwatch 2. That's what they did. They did most of that except the single-player campaign. And so now, you have to wonder, what was the entire point? Why did they even move on to Overwatch 2? The entire thing just doesn't make sense now. But personally, I'm disappointed because, like I said, I was interested in trying the campaign. I've never really been into Overwatch, but a campaign is a lot of time what will get me to try a game. That's where I start in most games. That's how I learn how to play. And I think Street Fighter 6 shows how important a good campaign can be, because there are a lot of people like me who are picking up a Street Fighter game for the first time. Well, not my first time. I like Street Fighter 2, but you get the idea. There's a lot of people willing to give Street Fighter a chance because this campaign is going to be so good. Overwatch could have done the same thing, and they're scrapping it, and I think that is a pretty big mistake. So I didn't play a whole lot of games this week. I certainly didn't beat any. I started in on Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll talk more about that once I've beaten it, because I certainly have opinions. But I do want to talk about today a game I played many years ago. I've revisited a few times recently. It's a series that I generally enjoy quite a bit. I want to talk about the Time Splitters games. This is a series of first-person shooter games. They released, I think, around between 2000 and 2005. They were kind of similar to like Perfect Dark, GoldenEye. Slightly better controls than that, to be honest. More modernized. They were the first one only released on PS2, but the second one and the third one, which are the two that I've played the most, also released on Xbox and GameCube. I really like Time Splitters 2. I really like Time Splitters 3. What I like about the Time Splitters games is compared to most first-person shooter games, there's a lot more diversity. At the time, they didn't get as much appreciation as I would have liked, because they tended to release around the same time as a new Halo game. Time Splitters 2 released around the same time as Halo 1, if I remember right. And Time Splitters 3 released around the same time as Halo 2, if I remember right. I don't think it was like the exact year, but it was like around the same time-ish. And so they were usually overclassed by the Halo games, which were considered much more modernized. But I still preferred Time Splitters. I thought the characters were more diverse. Because Time Splitters, it was also like a time travel based game. So they had characters from like all over time. And that a lot of them were funny. It was very unique. The shooting was fun. The multiplayer was fun. The weapons were also very diverse from all over time. You had weapons from the past, weapons from modern time, weapons from the future. So you could have one player using like a revolver from cowboy times up against another player with a sci-fi rifle. And it was just a fun game. Fun series of games. They also had like little puzzle elements that I thought were unique on occasion. They were very similar to like the GoldenEye game, GoldenEye 007, except the controls were like way better because you had the dual stick by this time period. Time Splitters 2 is where I was introduced to the franchise. The story, it was fun, but the story itself wasn't great. Like the story mode was fun to play through, but there wasn't much actual story to it. It was. I enjoyed it. Time Splitters 3 though had a more traditional like story mode with a full-on story, and it was also very fun. Most people prefer Time Splitters 2. I think a lot of people say the multiplayer is a little bit better. I think the multiplayer in 3 was like that practically the same. I enjoy 3 a little bit more personally. But it is a fun series of games. At one point they announced that a 4th one would be coming out here soon. I'm not sure if we've heard much about that here recently. It was announced a few years ago that Deep Silver was working on it. Embracer Group. Who knows? Maybe we'll hear more about that this year. I would prefer if they released the first 3 on modern consoles first. That way people could catch up. But if they just released a 4th one, that would be fine too. But I do think everyone should check out the Time Splitters games if they get a chance. So next, I want to talk about Nintendo again. This was not a good week for Nintendo. I want to talk, or NSO in general, but this is another NSO story. Specifically, they are shutting down Pac-Man 99. Pac-Man 99 was the multiplayer, the Battle Royale. Reading off of Polygon, Pac-Man 99, the Battle Royale spin on classic Pac-Man gameplay that's available through NSO will shut down this October. Publisher Bandai Namco announced Tuesday. That's when online services for the 99-player game will go offline. But Switch owners who paid for the game's DLC will still be able to play it offline against the CPU and in other modes. This sucks. Pac-Man 99 is pretty fun. There's no reason that it needs to be shut down. Having it there only adds to Nintendo's online service and makes it a better purchase each year. And this, I know Nintendo doesn't want people to get too much for their money, and I kind of get that, but like, and I'm sure that's not even the reason this is getting shut down. I'm sure there's some kind of licensing thing or something else that makes it so this had to be shut down. It just sucks though. People, even just a few years from now, won't be able to play this. People won't be able to go back and revisit it. And it is a pretty fun game that I think people should be able to play. It sucked when they did it with the Mario game, and it sucks now. I I wish Nintendo was better about this type of thing. I wish they took game preservation more seriously. But here we are. But it's time for another quick break. It'll be the last one, I promise. No more breaks for this episode after this one. But we gotta take a break. Be right back. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Not a big fighting game guy. I like fighting games when they're based on other like franchises like Injustice, Marvel vs. Capcom, the Power Rangers fighting game, that sort of thing. I'm not generally too much into the Street Fighter, the Mortal Kombats, the Tekkens, that sort of thing. But this year is looking like a good year for fighting games. Obviously, I've said how excited I am for the Street Fighter 6 stuff because that campaign looks so good. So when Mortal Kombat 1 was announced as a reboot, I was kind of interested. What if they do some new stuff there too? We don't know much about it yet. We only have a CGI trailer, but there were some juicy leaks. Amazon, I believe Italy, accidentally posted some DLC information before they were supposed to. It got deleted, because of course it did, but not before like everyone on the internet screenshotted it. So we know, well, this is still rumor, I guess. We don't know this for a fact. But it is likely Quan Chi, Omni-Man, Ermac, Peacemaker, Takada, and Homelander are going to be the DLC characters. And the ones that catch my attention the most are Omni-Man, Peacemaker, and Homelander. One, I feel like maybe some of this was planned for an Injustice game before they realized that might not be a good idea. It's been rumored from Jeff Grubb that originally they didn't make an Injustice game this time because they weren't sure if they would still have the license. All weird things are going on at Warner Brothers. There were rumors they were trying to sell the Mortal Kombat studio and the IP and all that. So they didn't know for a fact they'd be able to make an Injustice game. That's why they made another Mortal Kombat game. But there sure is an odd number of superheroes in the DLC. They usually have at least one DC character because it's easy for them to do. They have the rights. They might as well. They're owned by Warner Brothers. But having Omni-Man, Peacemaker, and Homelander, that sounds more like an Injustice DLC than a Mortal Kombat DLC. So I'm wondering if maybe some of these characters, they originally picked up the rights for that reason and ended up using them for this instead. I think they still work here, though. It's just kind of weird to have both Omni-Man and Homelander. Those are maybe a little bit too similar. But whatever. It would have been interesting to see them in an Injustice game have Omni-Man versus Superman. That would have been fun. But we're not getting that. I hope they get John Cena to voice Peacemaker. I'm sure they'll attempt to. Whether it works out or not is the real question. Part of this leak was also cameo characters, which we don't know exactly what those are yet. People are guessing they're kind of like the assist characters, the assist trophies in Smash Brothers. We don't actually know that for a fact. But 5 cameo characters that will be DLC will be Tremor, Johnny Cage, Carmeleon, Marvado, and Farah. And there'll be a skin of Jean-Claude Van Damme. So that's interesting. But the DLC characters are really what catches my interest. Omni-Man will be cool. Peacemaker will be cool. Homelander will be neat. I'm all about it. I'm still not sure this Mortal Kombat game is actually the game for me. I'm very excited for the Street Fighter game. But there's a lot of fighting games coming out. this year, it looks like. So, maybe I'll pick this up. Maybe I won't. I don't know yet. So we'll see. But I think we should move on to the next story. So accessibility has been a big subject in the gaming atmosphere really since forever, but it seems to have really caught on in the last few years. And I'm glad it has. This is an important thing. Gaming is one of probably the toughest form of entertainment to get accessibility right. Movies, TV shows, it's pretty easy to figure out. Hey, you have to do closed captions for accessibility. You have to have an audio version for accessibility, that sort of thing. But gaming, you have to do a little bit more than just that to make it accessible, because people have all kinds of physical disabilities. Microsoft released an accessibility controller a few years back. There's an 8-bit Doe one. And now Sony is jumping into that marketplace, which is pretty good. Sony has been very good about accessibility from a software perspective the last few years. Most of Sony's games have a lot of good accessibility options. In fact, at the Game Awards, I think they've won the Accessibility Award nearly every year the last few years. They've at least been nominated every year. So now they're releasing an accessibility controller. The specifically is called the Access Controller. They announced this on World Accessibility Day or something along those lines. I don't remember exactly. The Global Accessibility Awareness Day. That's right. That's what it's called. So I'm getting this off of the PlayStation blog. While accessibility is an important topic year-round, May is always special as we celebrate Global Accessibility Awareness Day and recognize the strides made by the accessibility community in the games industry to make gaming inclusive. At Sony Interactive Entertainment, we're committed to furthering that mission, so today we're excited to share new details and images of the Access Controller for the PS5 console. And it shows a picture of the controller with a bunch of different accessories you can add on. This definitely does look like it's made for accessibility, to change it up based on what your needs are. The details include analog stick caps of different sizes and shapes, button caps in different shapes and sizes, pillow button caps, flat button caps, wide button caps, overhang button caps, curved button caps, swappable button cap tags, so players can easily map each button. Players can use the Access Controller on flat surfaces or in it 360 degrees, or easily secure the controller to an AMS mount or tripod. They can also adjust the distance of the analog stick from the controller. All good stuff. With lots of good pictures. The Access Controller's 4 3.5 millimeter aux ports. Players can integrate their own specialty switches, buttons, or analog sticks. A lot of really good stuff. Sony is doing a very good job here with accessibility. I would say they probably lead the gaming environment when it comes to accessibility, to be honest. I'm glad this exists. People with disabilities do exist and play games as well. Also, a lot of us 30-year-old gamers or whatever, we're not going to be 30 forever. We'll eventually be in our 60s, 70s, whatever, and also may need accessibility options for gaming as well. So I'm glad this exists. More accessibility is always good. Even if you don't think you need accessibility options, you never know. You might change your mind one day. So I'm glad Sony is actively trying to make accessibility a bigger bigger point in their marketing and their games. Uh, Xbox has also generally been doing a pretty good job in this regards. They have their own accessibility controller. Uh, their accessibility options aren't usually quite as good as Sony's, but they're getting better. Nintendo is the one that really needs to do better in this regards. But their games are already relatively accessibility, even if it isn't relatively accessible, even if it isn't on purpose. But they could still do better. But I'm glad this is good. I think we should move on to the next subject. Time to talk about two different subjects that I generally enjoy: Ubisoft and Star Wars. The other day, Kotaku posted an article on Ubisoft's open world Star Wars game. Maybe sooner than you think is the title. I enjoy Star Wars. I enjoy Ubisoft. I am a huge Watch Dogs fan. One of my favorite game series. I also played some of their other games. I want to get into Assassin's Creed eventually. It's just one of those things that's really difficult to get into because there's so many of them. I wouldn't even know where to start. But it is a series that I'd like to get into eventually because it does look fun. And then, of course, I do enjoy the Watch Dogs games. So we've known they're working on a Star Wars game for a while now. But I'm just going to read off the article here. Star Wars takes place in a galaxy far, far away, but Ubisoft's first video game adaptation of the beloved sci-fi franchise could be just around the corner. Kotaku has learned the French publisher's open-world game is currently targeting a projected release date in early 2024 as the company scrambles for a major win after a year delays and projects trapped in development hell. The Assassin's Creed maker announced its largest operating loss in history on May 16th, but promised investors a healthy slate of big upcoming releases for the upcoming financial year, which includes March 2024, in addition to the release of Assassin's Creed Mirage, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and the permanently missing in action pirate blockbuster Skull and Bones. Ubisoft said another large game would also release within the next 12 months. According to sources familiar with the company's plans, who wish to remain anonymous because they were not authorized to speak to press, that additional game is Ubisoft's open-world Star Wars game. First revealed back in early 2021, Project Helix, as is known internally, is being developed with Massive as the lead studio. They usually do the Division games. So this could be a first-person shooter. Although this article does mention this is totally different from all sorts of games Massive worked on in the past. So maybe it is a third-person action game. According to this article, it's likely to include an interplanetary space travel. It hasn't been progressing well, and hopes are high internally that the game could be Ubisoft's first non-Assassin's blockbuster hit in some time. The goal is to release in the current financial year. Probably near the end of the current financial year, so that would be like March. I think this could be cool. If this is just like a No Man's Sky in the Star Wars universe, that could be fun. Though I do hope you can also play as like a Jedi. I'm not as big into the Star Wars games when they're just like a shooter. If you're not playing with a Jedi, they're usually just not as fun to me. I don't know why. It's just how it is. I enjoy the Jedi games. So I hope you can play as a Jedi with a lightsaber, with the Force, but also travel from planet to planet. Kind of like a No Man's Sky type game. That would be really fun. But I'm not sure if I trust Ubisoft to get it right. I enjoy the Watch Dogs games. But they can be glitchy at release. And Ubisoft does kind of have a certain formula to their games. Part of the reason I enjoy the Watch Dogs game so much is because I don't play other Ubisoft games. A lot of people who play all the Ubisoft games don't care as much for them, or just play all the games in general. They don't care as much for the Ubisoft games because they're so formulaic. And so hopefully they can mix things up a little bit. Hopefully there's no like technical issues or anything. They can get this game right by the time it releases. Because it sounds like a fun concept. Maybe we'll hear more this summer. Ubisoft is going to have their own presentation. They could also show up at Summer Game Fest or at Xbox or PlayStation. So hopefully we hear more about it this summer, because this is exciting. I am genuinely genuinely excited for a Ubisoft Star Wars game. That sounds like fun. So this is it. This is the end of the show. But don't be sad. Don't cry. Don't cry. I'll be back next week. Probably talking about all the announcements from this PlayStation showcase that's coming up. And I'll probably be talking about all kinds of other news, because it's just that time of year. My name is Derek. This is Derek Deputy Show. If you are listening on YouTube, please subscribe. Please like the video. And please click the notification bell so you can hear future podcasts. If you're listening on another podcasting platform, if there's a subscribe or a follow button, I would appreciate it if you clicked that, pressed it. If you're on mobile, listening in the car or whatever, that'd be great. Different podcasting platforms have different options for that sort of thing. If not, I will be back next week. So please tune in next week for the Derek Deputy video game show. I'm Derek Deputy. I hope everyone has a great week.